JTS, Jets with Aaron Rodgers. The number is 9.5 wins. What do you think?
Will you still take me to Bayonne if I say less?
Bayonne, yes. Polo Bar, we'll have to debate. Are you going to say less?
I'm going to say less, Greeny. As talented as they are, and I think they're Super Bowl contenders on paper, that paper in where it's written is in pencil. I mean, you're banking on the health of Aaron coming back at his age off the Achilles. You're banking on the health of the left tackle Tyron Smith. We'll see what they do with the number 10 pick in the draft. You're banking on Mike Williams coming back from the ACL and playing and being what he was previous to that injury. So as much as I'm hopeful, I know that surface isn't great in that stadium, and age and injury in the NFL usually doesn't bode well together.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I can't argue with any of that. Lewis, the Jets are trying to do something, and I actually think they've approached this offseason exactly the right way, which is you're as all in as you could possibly be. Throw everything in the middle of the table and hope it works, and they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. So I don't think there's any more boom or bust team in the entire sport, Lewis. There was no greater span of possible outcomes from really good to really bad for any team, Lewis, than there is for the Jets.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And look, I think your philosophy going into free agency and then into the draft is always to try and fill as many holes as possible, without just absolutely opening up your wallet and getting, taken to the cleaners as far as, giving away top-level contracts, but to try and fill as many holes as possible in free agency so you don't have to reach in the draft and you can kind of let the draft come to you and you can make selections organically and not force them. And that's what Joe Douglas is trying to do. He knows that the offensive line was an issue. He knows that a wide receiver opposite Garrett Wilson was an issue. But as Dan said, and as we all know, it's about availability, especially when you're talking about a guy like Tyron Williams and when you're talking about, a guy like Mike Williams. I mean, those are Tyron Smith, rather, and Mike Williams. Those are issues for them, their availability. How long are they going to be on the football field? And then with the quarterback as well. So, look, if those guys play all 17 games, then we're probably having a much different discussion in terms of our optimism. But right now, it's a little bit shaky.
Graziano, they need to draft a lineman. Do not let them take Brock. Everyone's talking about them taking Bowers, the tight end from Georgia.
That'd be fun.
Their season does not hang in the balance based upon their tight end play. No. Their season is completely hanging in the balance based on the offensive line.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously question marks at the tackles because they're older players. Tyron Smith with the injury history especially. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think depth there and also, long-term solution there because I don't think those guys are. But, yeah, on paper, in theory, the Jets look great. It's just there's a lot to prove. Aaron Rodgers has to prove he can come back off that injury and play at a high level at age 40. Tyron Smith, Mike Williams have to prove they can stay healthy. The coaching staff has to prove that it can manage its way through the ups and downs of a difficult season. Buffalo's coaching staff can do that.
Yeah.
We know that about them.
Yeah.
We don't know it about the Jets.
Steelers' total is 8.5, more or less.
I mean, more, right? Are they playing 17 games this year?
That's right.
Is 8.5 half of that? I mean, like, is Mike Tomlin still the coach who's never had a losing season? Look, there are questions about the Steelers. Can they have the playoff success that has eluded them for so long? What the quarterback situation will shake out. But I mean, as long as Tomlin's there, I know they're winning 9. They won 10 last year without an offense.
Yeah, with far lesser quarterback play than we expect them to have this year. Orlovsky, help me here. A lot of folks who were not with us yesterday. Handicap this quarterback thing for us. How do you expect this to play out with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Russell Wilson right now is in pole position in Mike Tomlin's words. I think it's going to be hard for him not to be their starting quarterback just because I don't think he's going to be somebody who tries to do too much. They're trying to get a risk-averse quarterback a little bit right now. And I know that Justin Fields is going to be given at least publicly, the opportunity to display what he can and is capable of doing. I don't know if that's going to be enough in the preseason. I think if this was a true competition, Greeny, true open competition, Justin Fields would be the starting quarterback. But that's got to be the case. And right now, that's not necessarily what's being said publicly. Two things I think are important context-wise in this situation. One, all due credit to Pittsburgh. They got 10 wins last year. I think they beat Jake Browning once, and then they beat essentially a Lamar-less Baltimore Ravens twice in some capacity. So some of those wins, 5-1 record in the division, we have to put it into context. The second thing is they have to draft a wide receiver early in this draft. It cannot just be the George Pickens show. He's not consistent enough and he's not reliable enough. Talented, yes, but they got to get somebody outside of him as well.
They have the 20th pick, and there are a bunch of good wide receivers who will be available there, we would assume. Harry Douglas, how good are the Steelers going to be, and who's their quarterback going to be?
Well, I think they're going to be really good. I like the addition of Arthur Smith, but I think it's important at the quarterback position with both of these guys. And, Dan, I heard you say this previous weeks ago, that taking care of the football is the most important. Eliminating the negative plays is going to be most important in Pittsburgh because you have such a great defense. So when it comes to Russell Wilson, can he orchestrate this offense and take care of the football? Can he galvanize those guys from an offensive unit and be on the same page? And for Justin Fields, you continuously work hard and try to be the starting quarterback. You don't go into this situation saying, you know what, I'm probably going to be the backup. Hell no. That's not the mindset to have. You go in there and try to win the starting job and do everything you can to get on the football field.
Very quickly, Graziano, I mean, they're saying, Tomlin is saying, it's Russell Wilson's job, and we'll see what Justin can do. Do we take them at their word that that is the way they approach it?
I do. Everything we've ever seen about Mike Tomlin indicates that we should, that it'll be a real competition, and that Justin Fields will have a chance to win the job.
Yeah, that to me is going to be the interesting part of all of this. Both those guys, it's all well and good for them to have a good quarterback room. For each of them, to at least some degree, their careers are kind of in the balance.
100%.
On how this plays out. By them, I mean Russell Wilson and Justin himself. So we'll see. Play sound off. Jason Kelce, Saquon Barkley, talking about the Eagles' tush push. Listen to this.
Do not go down at the 1 yard line. Got to go down at the 2.
Yeah.
Go down at the 1.
It's curtains. Yep.
They didn't ban it.
Yeah.
They didn't ban it.
Yep.
Jalen's going to get that. He's going to get
gonna
that
stay
every
in there.
time.
A little extra motivation there, That's just know, don't go down at the 1. You got to find a way to get in the end zone.
The tush push lives. Harry Douglas, go.
Hey, man, I live this. I used to play with a running back named Michael Turner. And every time a receiver got tackled inside the 5-yard line, we would run to the sidelines. He would come in the game and he would yell, "Thank you." And we would just be mad as hell at ourselves because we left so many touchdowns on the field and gave them to Michael Bernard or Turner.
What do you think? Is this thing still going to work, Dan, without Jason Kelce? Like, was he the most important part of the success of the tush push?
I think so. I was adamant about that. Kelce, because of the leverage that he played with, the strength that he had. I understand how strong Jalen and his legs are, but I think Kelce not being there is going to be a deterrent to doing this as much as they did. Nick Sirianni, their head coach, would say that they would treat 1st and 10 essentially like 1st and 9 because they knew they would go for it so consistently. So I don't know if the tush push is going to be as prevalent for Philadelphia as it was with Jason Kelce.
We'll find out. One more sound off here, and this one, Graziano, will start with you. The Packers, Jordan Love, we talked about how good we think this team is going to be this year. Here's the QB talking about his Super Bowl aspirations.
The organization believes that, it's the perfect time to have a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. And those conversations we had after that 49ers game were, work harder. Try and find ways to get better because next year we're going to do it.
That was from the Pivot with RC and the guys. So we do our overreactions, Dan. Is it an overreaction to say the Packers are the biggest threat to San Francisco in the NFC?
It is. I mean, look, they lost to San Francisco in the second round of the playoffs. There's a team in their own division that lost to San Francisco in the next round, right?
Yeah.
They're still going to have to overcome the Detroit Lions. I think the NFC looks stronger in terms of the depth of quality teams than we thought it was a year ago. I think the LA Rams are coming up, and they're going to challenge the 49ers in their own division. Packers are right there. They deserve consideration, but I think it's too soon to say that this young Packers team is the biggest threat to the Niners.
Orlovsky.
Yeah, before Aaron Donald retired from the Los Angeles Rams, I felt that they were the best team to go and knock San Francisco off. There's 3 now post Aaron Donald, and the Rams are not in there. Green Bay, Detroit, and Philadelphia are the 3 teams that I think are best equipped to beat San Francisco. Detroit is only going to surge. Obviously, the draft last year was a huge hit. I think the addition of DJ Reader for Detroit is huge. Here's the biggest thing for Green Bay. Jeff Hafley, who is their new defensive coordinator. The biggest complaint about the Green Bay Packers of the past couple years is how soft they've been schematically on defense. Hafley is not that. Hafley is going to get up in people's faces. He's going to play man coverage. They're going to come after defenses. So I think Green Bay, Detroit, and the Philadelphia Eagles are most equipped.
Harry, I like the question. Are the Packers the biggest threat in the NFC to San Francisco?
No, I got the Detroit Lions, and I love the way they address the defensive needs, getting DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, and also trading for Carlton Davis, a secondary need piece. I can't wait to see what they're going to do in the NFL draft because they knocked it out of the park a year ago.
The pro days are going on right now. And among those who was covering the Jayden Daniels and the rest of the LSU stars at their pro day yesterday was our own Louis Riddick, whose opinion on this stuff matters probably as much to me as absolutely anyone's. And so let's talk about what it is you saw. Louis Riddick joins us this morning. He's at North Carolina, where they will have their pro day today, which means Drake Maye. So we look forward to that. But let's start, Louis, as you join us here with Jayden Daniels. What did you see yesterday? What did it mean to you?
Well, first and foremost, when you get up close with Jayden Daniels, which is critical. I mean, that's why all the scouts were down. That's why you saw the place was this loaded with executives and scouts and coaches. You see that this is a guy who's almost 6'4", 210 pounds. And look, for everyone who's so concerned about his build, you need to stop being concerned. Because in his lower half, which is in particular where, you know, the point of contention or the point of debate really arises, he's put together well. He's put together like a 220, 225 pounder. Now, as far as his movement, the way he threw the football short, intermediate, deep, look, he is as fluid as any quarterback you've seen come out. He reminded me a lot yesterday in terms of his demeanor and the way he took over that workout, like C.J. Stroud looked last year when I went to his pro day in Columbus. The ball absolutely explodes off of his hand, tight spiral. He can change speeds, change arm angles. He can put the ball right where it needs to be put, both horizontally and vertically. Now, he missed a couple deep balls, and he said to me, look, I'd like to have a couple of those throws back, but he made up for them with some absolute spectacular deep shots to Brian Thomas, you know, to all the wide receivers that were out there yesterday. And I think he's one of those guys who right now, when you combine it with the tape, when you combine it with the kind of intelligence and the kind of feedback that I got from people who know him very well, who've known him since he was a freshman in college, this is a guy who is locked in. And for me, like I said it a couple weeks ago, I thought that this guy should be QB number one, but I just wanted to see him in person. And after looking at him in person, there's no doubt in my mind. And that's not to be disrespectful or to be disparaging towards Caleb Williams, but I think Jayden Daniels is quarterback one for sure.
No one should take it as such. And I will remind everyone, last year, Louis Riddick said repeatedly on this show and everywhere else, he felt C.J. Stroud was the best prospect in that class. We saw how that season played out. He feels that way about Jayden Daniels this year. Dan Orlovsky, what are you seeing?
I felt the same way. CJ's been the comp for me, and I know how heavy that is because CJ just had the greatest rookie season, arguably in the history of the NFL. Louis, for me, it's been the throwing motion that has stood out. Here's kind of why, when you watched, for me, Louis, the tape of all these guys, and I remember this last year with you, I just want who throws it the best. Like, who throws it the best in game? What guy makes the best decisions on that consistent basis? Who goes to the right place with the football on that consistent basis? Who throws the ball away from the defenders on a consistent basis, in time, in rhythm, with anticipation? It's Jayden. And that's why, we have gotten a little bit away from what we know to be the benchmarks of quarterback play in the NFL, or the standards, or what is needed to do it on an annual basis. And when I watched Jayden this year, it was clear to me. And that's why he's been the guy. And I agree. The C.J. Stroud just throwing motion comp and the left arm being tight to his chest and the smooth element of it, that's why I agree.
So what is interesting to me is the draft has become such an event that now we get into a consensus. Like all of a sudden, well, Louis Riddick likes Jayden Daniels better, and Dan Orlovsky likes Jayden Daniels better, and so do many other people. But at the end of the day, Dan Graziano, there's really only one person's opinion that's going to matter on April 25th. Is there any reason to believe that the Bears that this is an open competition? Is there any reason to believe that Caleb Williams is not going to be the first pick and it is, for all intents and purposes, signed, sealed, and delivered?
Not yet. At this point, it still feels like he's the number one pick to the Bears. But there are more boxes that need to be checked. I mean, he has not made his top 30 visit yet. Bears general manager Ryan Poles said at the owners' meeting earlier this week that visit would take place next week, as that visit will involve a physical. Remember, this is a player that did not submit to medical exams at the scouting combine. No one's going to draft him without giving him a physical. So there are other things that have to happen yet with the Bears and Caleb Williams before we get to 100% sure that they're taking him. It certainly has been pointing in that direction all along and still is. But they were there yesterday in Baton Rouge to take a look at Daniels because you have to do your due diligence in case something changes.
Yeah, there's also a lot of other good players at LSU. You made the
correct.
point.
And they have the ninth pick, too.
Yeah, they have the ninth pick, and you know, Malik Neighbors, who probably won't be there at 9, but one way or another, he's there. Lewis, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say this. Look, I asked, if you saw the interview, I asked Jayden Daniels, said, look, it's just as important for you to interview the teams as it is for them to interview you. You know, what do you need from the team? And he said, look, first and foremost, I need belief and I need investment in me, the same way that Brian Kelly and the LSU program invested in me. Because it paid dividends with him from year 1 to year 2 at LSU. You saw the jump he made this year. That's important to him, and it reminds me so much of what, you know, guys like Brian Hartline at Ohio State told me about C.J. Stroud last year. It's going to be important for wherever C.J. goes, he told me, for the head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, to invest in C.J., to develop that relationship with C.J., because it's something that's critical with him. I was told the same thing. The absolute same thing in this case with Jayden. Invest in him. Make sure you earn his trust, because if you do, he'll pay it back to you tenfold with his play on the field and the way in which he'll elevate his game, both as a player and as a leader, which if you saw yesterday, his leadership, the way he took control of that workout, it reminded me of C.J. Stroud once again. And the way he got on with all of the players, the way he was joking with them, it was authentic, man. He wasn't putting on a show for anyone. He was authentically invested in their well-being, making sure he was trying to put the ball on time, in rhythm for them, for Malik, for Brian, and they were trying to pay it back to him. And the people who I trust, who know this kid the best, said, look out for him. In the next 2 to 3 years in the NFL, he's going to take it by storm, the same way CJ did in year 1, which nobody expected. It's that same kind of thing. It just reminds me, they're so similar to me.
He's got that Carolina blue. That's because he is at Carolina's pro day. We were talking at great length about Jayden Daniels' pro day at LSU yesterday, how good it was. Maye is going to throw for all these teams. Now, I don't know that the physical evaluation is what anyone is concerned about. He's got all the tools, but that doesn't mean there aren't some questions about him. So, Lewis, let me come right to you. You're in the building. What will you be looking for as you watch Drake Maye go through this day, and what will it mean?
Yeah, for me, it's really what kind of adjustments has he made? What kind of improvements has he made in terms of his mechanics, tying the upper and lower body together? And then how does it equate to improved accuracy in this kind of environment, which everyone expects your accuracy to be top notch? I mean, those are the kind of things that you're looking for. What has he been working on? Because, look, quarterback, when trying to determine their, people's ceilings at that position now, is not like it used to be 25, 30 years ago, because with the kind of advancements that people are making with individual throwing coaches as far as using motion capture to kind of tweak your mechanics and make sure that you're in optimum physical positions in terms of your arm angles and your feet and your hips and your lower body that will then, result in you being more accurate. Those are the kind of things that people are really utilizing now. And I'm just wondering if Drake will look any different now as opposed to how he looked during the season, which some people were critical about, a much more elongated release than what you see out of a guy like Jayden Daniels. I just want to see what kind of improvements he's made there. Because, look, again, this isn't a football game that we're sitting here scouting. He's not playing 11 on 11. He's not getting rushed. He's not, right now working with, wide receivers that he's been, practicing with all week long, and this isn't a game atmosphere. So you have to kind of keep it all in context. But I just want to see individually what kind of tweaks that he made, like Caleb Williams has really focused on this offseason, like Jayden Daniels continues to focus on. Just want to see what he looks like.
Well, how about you, Dan? What will you be watching today?
His feet. That's it. Bad feet equal bad anticipation. Bad feet equal bad misses. And if I was going to be critical or the most critical on one element of this young man's game, and I love him, I called so many of his early games in college football, it's his feet, and that's why I've said the Jordan Love model. I think the way that I would pay attention personally to it today is the easy throws, not the hard throws. Because my biggest complaint of him is a little bit what it was with Lamar Jackson coming out of college. You're so mechanically poor with your feet that you miss easy throws and you make the hard ones. So is he cleaner with some of the easier throws, swing passes to the backs, 10-yard out routes, little shallow crosses, checkdowns? I want to see the ball where it's supposed to be in relation to because of his feet being where they're supposed to be.
And Graziano, I would ask you, I feel like there was a moment in time when the conversation was, will it be Caleb Williams or Drake Maye as the number one pick in this draft? Now, suddenly, I feel like it's, will Maye even be the third quarterback selected in this draft? What are you hearing from the people in these orifices?
I think it's still a top 3 with J.J. McCarthy on the outside of it. There are some people that would tell you otherwise, but it seems like the consensus is a top 3. And in terms of who's 2, I think Drake Maye is a consideration for the Commanders at number 2. I don't think they've decided what they're going to do. I think they want to get a look at him. They want to spend some time with him and meet him and go through their process. Assuming the Bears go with Caleb Williams at 1, the Commanders have a decision. Maye or Jayden Daniels at number 2. And, you know, I think, quite frankly, they're just sort of starting the meat of their evaluation of Drake Maye here with this pro day today.
Orlovsky has repeatedly said he believes Drake Maye needs some time. You know, does not need to be a starter week 1. We'll see how much that might factor into what teams decide to do.